Hello, and it's good to be here with you today. My name is Garrett Conlon, and I work with an organization called Shield to Cree, Seeds of the Heart. And we're an education centre based in County Monaghan, Carrick Cross in County Monaghan. And I did a workshop with Global Village on ecosystem restoration and a whole school approach. So it's not, if we want to reverse climate change, stabilize the climate and build healthier communities, we need to restore the ecosystems. It's not enough any longer to sustain things as they are. It's also not a very motivating fact to sustain levels and like biodiversity loss, carbon in the atmosphere, inequality levels, um, all these different issues we have. So we're not really interested in sustaining that. We want to move beyond sustainability towards regeneration. And the amazing thing is that it's possible. So our mission at Shield to Cree is restore the ecosystems of Ireland. Inherent within that, so two things: we include humans as part of that ecosystem, so that includes healing human beings as well as wider nature, because we see humans as just another part of nature and not separate from it. And also from a development, education, or global citizenship point of view, the global context is really important. We're connected and involved in a network called Ecosystem Restoration Communities, which is a global movement. So inherent in everything we do is this global perspective, but our mission is focusing on Ireland while feeding into this global movement in different parts of the world. So I'm going to put on a few slides just to give a flavor of it. Hopefully that's coming up okay. So I titled it Permaculture and Global Citizenship Education. So permaculture is a design system. It's how we work with nature as opposed to against her. And there's a lot of stuff online about it. You can check it out if you're interested. The metaphor that I've heard before, that like it's kind of like a wardrobe, and within that wardrobe, so permaculture is the wardrobe of different tools, and within that you can pull out different things. Like could be soil building, it could be rainwater harvesting, and it was originally permaculture, permanent agriculture, but it's grown to be beyond permaculture is permanent culture. So even things like economics, social well-being, all these different things start to come into it. How can we create a culture that's regenerative? When you really go deeper into sort of global citizenship education, you come to sort of like this idea of decolonial education or decolonial thought, and then you come into contact with issues such as whiteness and white supremacy and yeah, just a very white centered way of seeing the world. And I am getting a bit more critical with permaculture because again, it was developed by two Australian people in the 80s, two Australian men, so two white men. But these are practices that have been done all over the world by indigenous populations for a long time. So the phrase permaculture is just a recent coined bringing together of them. It's useful, but that would be a slight critique for me on it. So Shield to Cree, we're an education and retreat centre, and we're based. We're trying a demonstration site as well. So we're placed on a regenerative operating farm. So we're exploring different food techniques, food growing techniques, and ecosystem restoration practices. So it's not just enough to talk. We want to have an example of connecting with and examples of exploring. We don't claim to have it all figured out. We're just on a journey of exploration. So at Shield to Cree, we're creating a space dedicated to education, exploration, solidarity, healing, transformation, and regeneration. And we see people as part of it. Our logo is the dandelion. So the idea of that is that the seeds blow and it'll take root in other parts. So while we have a base, we work all over the place. So Shield to Cree is regenerating people and wider nature, and I mentioned our mission. We work under 3 pillars, which is education focused on regenerative cultures. And what we mean by that is it's not enough just to plant trees and build soil. we need to like create a fundamentally different way of being with each other in the world, and we need to create different cultures that are more regenerative, more nourishing, more healing, and that's from ourselves, healing our own stuff, community, um, and yeah, wider than that. We also explore regenerative and resilient food systems. So people need to eat, and a major factor in ecosystem degradation at the moment and carbon is farming. So how can we create agroecological ways of growing food? So people need to eat. So rather than it being like, and this is often the narrative in Ireland, farmers against nature, but actually there's a lot of examples of farming being a real healing towards ecosystem and creating systems that are like sequester carbon, that build biodiversity, that create nutrient dense food and pay the farmer a fair wage. And that's what we mean by that section, because people can't look at anything else if they don't have healthy food. I think actually doing ecosystem restoration works. We do different projects on healing ecosystem restorations, and I feel like a lot of those could be relevant for primary schools, especially the whole school approach, school gardens, as a way of connecting you. We're talking as well in the webinar about like what's useful for students of this age. Is it going into all the inequalities and issues in the world, or is it supporting them to create a deep love for nature, being children, connecting with and loving nature? Because we'll only defend things that we really love, and probably that's a more useful way of bringing these issues into with the children that you work with. That was just a webinar, a slide we asked you, the teachers, what would they like to get out of it. And I've already touched into permaculture, what it is. So it's a practical method of developing ecological, harmonious, efficient, productive systems that can be used by anyone, anywhere, to work with nature as opposed to against her, and it's an ecologically sound way of living. There's 3 ethics in permaculture. So people care, earth care, and fair share. So how can we create systems that look after people, look after wider nature, and that there's equal distribution or fair distribution of resources? You bring that together, sort of, we come into ecosystem restoration, and this is it's a lovely documentary. It's free on YouTube. You can check it out. It's by a filmmaker, John D. Liu, Hope in a Changing Climate. And he was documenting the Liz Plateau in China, which is an area the size of the Netherlands, was completely degraded, no biodiversity, no soil, just a lot of issues, and to connect with the local community to restore ecosystems. And within a 14-year period, the transformation was miraculous. There's loads of pictures online to this plateau you can check out. You can watch that video. But his thing was that wide-scale ecosystem restoration is possible. If it's possible, and why aren't we doing it? And he calls it the great worker for time. If you look at that video, one thing I often do with students is connecting it with the SDGs, if that's what you're looking at too. So you can even, they don't mention the SDGs, but it touches on poverty, hunger, education, life on land, life below water, partnership for goals, all these different issues that are like, it's actually done before the SDGs, but like it just shows how when you work on one issue, how you can have a knock-on effect on other, or how the issues are interconnected. So getting involved with Shield Decree, there's our website, shielddecree.ie. You can connect with us on Instagram or Facebook, and we're available to host workshops either in the school, or we do school tours and workshops with students on our education ecosystem restoration demonstration site in Carrick Cross, which is about an hour and a half outside of Dublin. So quite accessible, I would say. Yeah, hopefully we can connect in, and thank you very much. And thank you, Global Village, for hosting the space. It's really important work. Thank you.